Okay, here we go. We're going to make the coil exercise right now. Alright, so you can start off by taking hunks off of the clay. Make sure all the little chips and stuff are off of the table space that you're going to work on. And then here we are, we're kind of squeezing it into shape. And we're going to roll it out. And I'm rolling it, I'm starting kind of in the center and working my way out to make it spread like that. And you can see I'm working it all the way from like the back of my hand to the tips of my fingers. You don't want to be in a position where you're just, like scooting it a little bit like that, because that's not going to work so well. You'll make funny spots on each coil. You don't have to work really long either. You can work in, half pieces, and work those, right? So whenever you find a thick spot, you can concentrate on that spot a little bit more and get it closer to the thickness that you want. So, taking chunks of clay there and just kind of squeezing it into the form. Break this off into two. And then we're just rolling it out like normal. Right. If you've never done this before, it might end up being a little awkward to start with, but that's okay. It's one of those things that responds well to practice. Working it out and working it out. Coils are one of the most basic ways to work with clay. But when I say basic, I mean straightforward. It's not really basic, because you can make just about anything with coils. There's a place in France where they're making wine storage jars that are 14 feet tall, and they make them out of coils, really thick coils, like 6 inches around kind of a deal. And you can roll them out and start putting them on and go any direction that you want. But for now, you're just going to stick with a pretty simple couple of course changes, making what I call the coconut pot. So grabbing more clay off there. So here we are, we're rolling it. And like I said, if you have a thick spot somewhere, like I'm a little bit thicker in through here than I am in a couple other places, so I'll just work those spots a little bit until I get a fairly even coil. So the clay, as it sits around, it can dry out. And the longer it dries out, the more difficult it will be for you to blend the coils, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So if you find yourself, pretty slow at making a coil, that's okay. That's no problem. Just instead of making a bunch like I have here, you'll want to just make a couple of them, put them together, and then make a couple more, right? Because it's very important that the clay stays the right kind of consistency to attach to itself. Okay, so we're putting these guys in here. Alright, so we are going to start out with this one here. And this is going to become the bottom. And how we're going to do that is we're going to force the coil into itself and start curling it around like that. so that there's no negative space left in the middle. Right, pulling that together, and then we blend the end there. Now, some people scratch and attach coils together, some people blend them, it really depends. So we're going to blend these guys, and that just means that I'm going to take the surface material of the coils and bring them together like this. Right? So it's a bit like welding, where you bring material from one piece of steel into another piece of steel, and then they're, together. You can only do this with clay when the clay is right out of the bag. I don't think it took me 5 minutes to roll those coils. So that's how we're going to bring stuff together, is by this blending deal here. When you're doing it, you blend the most comfortable way you can blend it, and move the clay so that continues to be a comfortable spot, So instead of like blending like this, that works really well for me, I don't try and jump over here and crook my arm around or flip over to another way of doing it. Just move the piece of clay, Okay, so now I've got this little roundish thing, the little point where it stopped. I'm going to tap that on the table a little bit to kind of bring it in to line with the rest of it. Okay, so we've got this little guy, and now we're going to start adding coils to it. So we'll take, and I'm going to staple that end down. See how I just blended that downward. And this coil is going to go directly on top of the pad. I'm not putting it on the outside or the inside right now. It's just going exactly on top of the pad. So I'm going to use my thumb and forefinger to make a V shape and kind of stick it in place where I want it to be. I'm going to go around once. And then when I get around to here, I'm going to put the coil on top, but slightly on the outside, right? And that's how we start bringing the clay out, right? So just as an example, you can see a previous one of these where the clay goes out and then comes back in. So I'm going out now by putting the coil on the previous coil, but scooting it out a tiny bit. Okay, so here we go, blending the inside here. I'm grabbing clay with my thumb and bringing it down. You can go down or up, whichever one's comfortable with you, that's okay. So hopefully I'm in camera there. I'm going around blending this stuff up, being methodical, getting in there, blending it, and then moving on. Okay. So with the very bottom, you may end up with a little ring like we have here. So what you'll do is you'll take a little clay from the center and bring that out. Again, you can see my right hand spinning it for my left hand. Funny thing, I'm a right-handed person, but my left hand is really good at blending coils. Okay, now on the outside, you can go up or down, or even a little bit diagonal, but do not go sideways on the inside or the outside. Always up or down. Right. We're getting in there, we're moving that clay around, making sure that these are going to stick together. Blending, blending, blending. Okay? Okay. Ready for another one. So I'm going to start this off where I left off on the other one. Blend the end so it stays in place. And then, like I said, we're making this go out a little bit. So as I feed this on, it's going slightly on the outer side of the previous coil. And by outer side, I don't mean I'm not stapling it on the outside here. I'm just leaning it out a tiny bit. Doesn't take much. Okay, and then we'll staple that one on, and then we're back to blending. Going around here. Okay, so this inside here, it's going to be really tempting to just really polish it with your thumb a lot or your fingers a lot. You want to resist. You want it to be reasonably smooth, but not super duper smooth. It's on the inside, so long as it's battened down and there are no hooks, like little pieces sticking up, you're okay. That's no problem. All right, this is how we've been making them for thousands and thousands of years. Okay, and then we're back on the outside there, and we're blending it. And I'm just kind of feeding it around so I can get the most comfortable spot to work on blending the coil. And again, the only way this works is that the coils are still really moist. Okay, so I've got this low patch again from the start, and I'm going to grab that, and now what I'm going to start doing is coming in instead. I have proved to you and myself and everybody else that I can go out like that, so now we want to return and leave kind of a hole in the top there. So let's start with this one, I guess. Get this guy stapled on there. So instead of staying on the outside now, I'm going to consciously walk this in as I put it on. Okay. So we'll get that stapled down. And you can kind of see it now, how this one comes in a tiny bit. Okay. So blending it on. Other things you don't want to do. You don't want to put all the coils together and then go back and start blending them, because that'll get you into trouble. The coils won't be nailed down so well, so they can slop around a little bit, and you'll almost assuredly deform your shape. Another thing you don't want to do is you don't want to start on the outside. You want to start on the inside, right? Because when we do the inside, we push it out a bit, and if we do the outside second, we can like get it back in. Good tight connection on there. Okay. And then again, we move to the outside. So the angle has changed now because I'm going in, so I'm blending this slightly differently. Like I'm holding my hand in a slightly different way. You know, so I'm in these hands and you're in your own. So you want to figure out what's most comfortable and effective for you, and then just use that. It's really helpful to work on a place, get it fixed, move on to the next place, get it fixed. Right? Like methodical is really a good deal for this. If you happen to have long fingernails, they are going to be a problem for this. It's really difficult to do good blending without having access to the ends of your fingers and the ends of your thumb. I've seen some lovely fingernails that were shortened to where they still look like fancy fingernails, but you can see the pads on the ends of the fingers a little bit, right? So it might seem like a frivolous little thing to you to get rid of your fingernails so you can do a good job, but it's pretty important. Okay, so I'm going to take this one and drop this on here, buckle it down, and then again I'm going inward. Okay. On bigger stuff, you can make yourself a really cheap turntable, just a piece of paper, and then this thing will spin no problem. Alright, so I'm on inside. And I'm blending around. A little bit on the diagonal right now. Okay, and then we get to the outside. And I'm pulling clay up. I mean, obviously you don't want to put so many coils on that you can't reach to the bottom of where there are coils still. And just get in there and blend those guys. So I have my left fingers, except for this one, inside there. And it might look to you like I'm kind of pinching something, but I'm not, I promise. All these fingers do on the inside is they help orient my hand and kind of act like a foundation, so I have something strong and sturdy to hang on to while I do this. Pretty straightforward, right? So just a quick side commercial on that. So I can take this coil, wrap it around, and kind of close it on itself, and you guys can see how thick that is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend this guy on one side and then the other. Okay, and you can see the coil is very nearly exactly the same thickness as it was. I'm not squeezing or pinching or anything like that. I'm just kind of like pulling the surface of one into the other so that they blend and they stick together. Okay. Okay, so yeah, maybe we can wrap this up in one more coil. I'm just going to take and check and make sure I didn't miss anything. And the form's doing what I want it to. A couple little places there. Yeah, as you're going along, I mean at first this will be like really, you have to be very focused to do it carefully. But after a while it'll become kind of automatic. You gotta just go back after you put every coil on, make sure you're not making any mistakes or you're not going the wrong direction or whatever. Okay, stapling it on. And then we're going to bring this one in. Working my way across the table here. And I think we're going to stop there. Okay. You do not need to be able to see the coils on the inside when it starts getting close together like this. Right? So you can kind of feel where the lines are and kind of know from where you can see they are on the outside that you're getting a good attachment. That all blended up. That was a longer coil, so there's more blending to do, obviously. Okay, so we're all the way around there. Then we're going to take and run the outside. You can see right hand has just kind of taken over the business here. That is because the arch is coming inward so much, and it's just easier for me to grab it that way now. These guys and this a little bit. Okay, so you can see this thing comes out and it comes back in like that, very much under control. Looks like I didn't miss anything. There's lots of finger marks all the way around it, but it's all attached real well. So then you can try a different kind of finishing. Make sure your silver tool is pretty clean, and then you get inside with your fingers and you run over the clay with less of a steep angle than when you're finishing stuff that's dry. Right? So less of a steep angle, you're dragging it across there, and there you go. Right, and you can see that very, very shiny spot there, or very, very flat spot. You can do that to the whole thing. But yeah, that is the coconut pot. I need to see that you can competently control the shape coming out and coming back in. This is an exercise we do that's kind of a gateway to the larger project, right? Okay, so that's it. Thank you.